In this example, I'm going to show you how to set up a problem where you are given an unadjusted trial balance from the previous month, and you need to enter those values into your general ledger before you start journalizing the transactions for the current month. So this is similar to problem 2.4 that is in your textbook. So in this situation, they've given you an unadjusted trial balance as of March 31st. So all the transactions for March had been entered. They've been entered into the general ledger, balances have been updated, and a trial balance has been prepared. So we see all of the values that would be in our general ledger, and then we see the transactions that would happen in the month of April. So make sure you're always paying attention to the directions that are given to you and the required steps that they ask you to take. So in the first requirement, they tell you that we need to enter those beginning balances to get started. So before we can do any of our journalizing for April, we need to enter in these balances. So I'm just going to do an example for you. I'm just going to use cash as our example. So up here in our ledger, we're going to click on our ledger. We're going to open to our cash value. So again, don't forget there's always some additional information that's provided to you at top. It actually repeats any instructions that affects that panel. So in this case, both step 1 and 3 in the requirements require you to post to the ledger. So that's what they're telling you to do. So they tell us to put in our dates, our beginning dates as of April 1st. They tell us in the items column to write balance. Normally we leave it blank when we are just posting those monthly transactions, but if there is a beginning balance, we write in balance. In the post reference column, we need to put in a check mark and select the check mark in the post reference column right here. This first debit and credit column, we do nothing with. These first two debit and credit columns record transactions that affected that account on a particular day. This is not a transaction. This is a beginning opening balance. So we only look at the balance column. And in our unadjusted trial balance, we see that cash has a debit balance of $25,500 as of March 31st. Ending balance from one month becomes our beginning balance for the next. So in the debit column, we're going to type in $25,500. We don't put anything again in that first debit and credit column because that only records transactions. So you would do this same process for every account that is listed here that has a beginning balance. We need to do that step first before we go ahead and do any of our journalizing of the current month's transactions. So let's say we did go through and put in all of those transactions, or all those balances rather. We come down and now we can start journalizing. So in our journal, we have on April 1st that we paid rent on the month of $4,000. So April 1st, we paid rent, so rent expense is going to be affected. It's a debit because it's increasing of $4,000, and we know that when we've paid it, that means cash is involved and it's being reduced by $4,000. Once we post our transactions, we want to then, as we record our transactions, we want to then post them to our ledger. So we open up our ledger again. Cash was involved. So on April 1st, cash was credited for $4,000. So on April 1st, we're going to leave the item column blank because that's only when we're dealing with a balance. And then in this first debit and credit column are where we're going to post what happened to cash on this specific day, on this specific transaction. And what happened to it? It was credited for $4,000. We now need to update our balance. Remember, opposites subtract. So we had a debit balance. This is a credit transaction. That means we have $21,500 remaining in cash. It only stays in our debit balance column. My debit balance is greater than the credit transaction of spending cash on April 1st. Every account only will have one type of balance, and it's whatever side increases that account. In the post reference here, we post whatever page number of the journal that we can find that transaction. So here, On page 18 is where we can find the transaction where cash was credited for $4,000. So in our ledger, we post page 18. Here in our journal, in the post reference, we put the account number of the account that we've updated. And again, we see here our account number for cash is 11. You'd repeat that process for your rent expense.